In a small town that seems peaceful, surrounded by peaceful cornfields, but secretly hides a dark secret. In the midst of trying to rebuild life, a mysterious clown appears, not to entertain, but to terrorize the whole town. The Clown. In the Cornfield film is here again as a bloody sequel to the previous horror story, bringing new tension that is more brutal, darker, and full of surprises. This time, the characters must survive not only from the terrifying figure, but also from the rot that is hidden behind the friendly face of this small town. What actually happened in the cornfield, and why is the clown back? Instead of getting more curious, let's just get straight into the plot of the film. The story begins in the year 1991, in the small town of Kettle Spring. That night, a group of teenagers are gathered around a campfire next to a syrup factory near an old cornfield. These teenagers look like they're having a blast. Then among them, a blonde girl is seen playing a small clown-shaped music box. Before long, the blonde girl signals to her boyfriend to have a mechanical duel in the cornfield. And of course, the man followed the blonde in there. In the cornfield, the somewhat wild blonde started acting spoiled and took off some of her clothes. But she wandered too far, and her boyfriend lost track of her. When the man was looking for the blonde, he saw a fairly large footprint on the ground. Then suddenly the blonde appeared, startled him while spraying blood on the man's face, which made the blonde immediately lie on the ground. Then a creepy clown figure known as Friendo appears, and then... What the fuck? The story moves to the present. We are shown a father and doctor named Glenn and his daughter named Queen driving towards the town of Kettle Spring. It turns out that the father and daughter are on their way to their new home. But after arriving there, they realize that there was no signal at all at that location. It turns out that Queen's mother has died, and since her mother's death, the relationship between Queen and her father can be said to be not very harmonious. Long story short, the next morning, Queen was getting ready for her first day of school in her new city. Glenn offered to drive her to school. However, Queen declined, feeling she was old enough to go alone.
Good. We're gonna be okay.
When she opened the door, Queen was surprised to see a teenage boy standing in front of her door. The boy immediately apologized and introduced himself. His name was Ras, and it turned out he was their neighbor in the new house. Then, casually, Glenn asked, "Are you here to take Queen to school?" Raz nodded, and they finally left together.
Dr. Maybrook, this is the best person to ask.
Upon arriving at school, Queen was late. Her teacher, Fan, was seen telling the other students that there would be an exam soon. However, the moment Mr. Dan turned around, all the students burst out laughing, because it turned out that a naughty student had stuck Mr. Fan's face on a poster depicting a muscular man. The incident made Mr. Fan very embarrassed, but instead of stopping, the mischief in the class continued. When Mr. Fan handed out the exam questions, the students burst out laughing because the paper had a photo of Mr. Fan that had been edited on it.
If one of these leaves this room, you will all be
After class, Queen started to get to know some of the kids at the school. Among them were Cole, Janet, Ronnie, Tucker, and Matt. When they first met, they seemed quite friendly. Cole even showed them a hilarious video of themselves, showing Tucker and Matt dressed up as scary clowns, aka Friendo. Long story short, Queen and her father went to eat at a restaurant in the city. There, they were served very kindly by a waitress named Trudy.
Y'all ready to order?
Yeah.
Then, while they were waiting for their food, the town sheriff appeared and arrived. He introduced himself to Glenn, the town's new doctor.
Hi, this is my...
Not long after, Cole and the gang were seen coming there too, but it seems like the sheriff doesn't like seeing them. The sheriff even reminded Queen not to be friends with them, because the sheriff said, in the past, Cole's group had caused trouble and caused a big fire at the corn syrup factory.
some good advice.
Then Sheriff continued chatting with Glenn, while Queen excused herself to go home first. But in fact, she was meeting her new friends outside the restaurant.
Do you, Negro?
Oh, yeah, actually I do.
The naughty teenagers then planned to do something naughty, where they wanted to steal illegal drinks from the shop. Once inside the shop they were targeting, Matt and Tucker got into action by pretending to fight to distract the owner. Meanwhile, the others started stealing some bottles of drinks from the fridge.
Hey! Stop that!
Dude plowed my grandma Gladys. Stop!
That night, they celebrated their success by hanging out and having fun.
Best damn store clerk Kettle Springs could ever ask.
Not long after, Matt went into the bushes to relieve himself. There, Queen also had time to ask Cole's group about the corn syrup factory fire that the sheriff had discussed earlier that afternoon.
Factory burnt down recently?
At first, Cole seemed hesitant to talk, but eventually he opened up. Cole said that at the time, they were actually just making a prank video for their social media content. However, a damaged cable accidentally caught fire, causing the old factory to catch fire. Unfortunately, the people in the town blamed them for the accidental fire. On the other hand, when Matt was urinating, suddenly he was attacked by a scary clown figure using a knife until his internal organs were spilled out. The incident made them all look panicked, but it turned out to be just Cole and the gang making content to prank the Queen. And the clown was Tucker. After that, Cole had a casual chat with Queen. Queen had the chance to tell him about her mother who died of an overdose last summer, which left her father devastated and unable to work as a doctor at their old place because he kept remembering his late wife. That's why his father asked Queen to move to a new place, so he could forget the beautiful memories with his wife and start a new life in the town of Kettle Spring. Here, Cole also talks about his little sister, who also died last summer after jumping off a cliff while swimming. Unfortunately, her jump wasn't far enough, and she ended up not in the water, but in another realm.
We used to hang out at this reservoir all the time, and
The conversation brought Cole and Queen closer together, to the point where Cole took Queen home. And don't forget, Queen gave Cole a big kiss in the car. Oh my god, wow. But suddenly they were surprised by Glenn, who caught them in their intimate act. Glenn was furious because Cole made Queen forget the time and come home late at night. He also asked Cole to stay away from Queen.
Go home!
Queen, annoyed by her father's behavior, immediately sulked and went to her room. There, Queen watched the video content they had recorded that night. But suddenly, he noticed something strange in the video. At one point, there was another figure wearing a Friendo clown mask. Does that mean the real Friendo clown is also in the video? Sensing something was wrong, Queen immediately took a screenshot of the video and sent it to Tucker. After receiving Queen's message, Tucker immediately checked his phone camera. And sure enough, in the recording, there was another figure who was also wearing a Friendo clown mask. But he didn't really care. It was just part of the content they were making. Not long after, a notification appeared from the CCTV in front of his house, which turned out to be the clown Friendo. But again, Tucker didn't take it seriously. He thought it was Cole's work who wanted to prank him. He then went out carrying a toy gun and checked around his house. Then when Tucker returned to his room, he noticed that the floor had been covered in plastic. And when he opened the closet, he found a clown music box from the B-Pen syrup factory. And just as Tucker closed the closet door, the clown figure of Friendo was already standing behind him. Then suddenly, Tucker is dead on the spot. The scene shifts to the town's Founders' Day celebrations. The mayor, Arthur Hill, who is also Cole's father, is giving a speech to the townspeople. Queen and Cole are also seen attending the festival. The event was quite lively, and everyone was excited to be there. But soon bad things started to happen. One of the flaming magic props was accidentally thrown at the clown float. This caused the float to burst into flames. The fire spread quickly, and the parade was immediately thrown into chaos. This incident made Mayor Arthur very angry, and he immediately wanted to know who was responsible for this incident. Then Sheriff Dan arrived. Without hesitation, Sheriff Dan immediately accused Cole and his friends of being the masterminds of this chaos. Because of the accusations without any evidence, they were all immediately thrown into temporary detention cells. And while in the cell, an old man was seen speaking to them with a serious look, where he told Cole's group not to mess with the clown figure Friendo. Otherwise, he would come and chase them one by one. Luckily, Glenn arrives shortly after and frees them all. However, he seems disappointed that Queen is still friends with Cole.
No, they did a full investigation. He's not a liar, Daddy.
Meanwhile, at his house, Matt, who was working out in the garage, suddenly found Friendo the Clown's music box. And that means Friendo the Clown has targeted Matt to be his next victim. But here, Matt also thinks that it's just a prank from his friends. Then, as Matt continued lifting weights, Friendo suddenly appeared, pointing a saw at his neck. And this is what happened. One night, while her father was asleep, Queen sneaked out and met Cole. They went to a farmhouse where a big party was going on. And there they reunited with their friends. Queen and Cole drank together, danced, and finally they were alone in the barn. But just as things were starting to warm up, Cole suddenly pulled away and walked away. This made Queen feel annoyed and disappointed. Then he left the warehouse. Outside, he met Janet and Ronnie. Ronnie joked about Cole being so handsome and always rejecting girls.
Cole rejects everything.
Hearing that, Queen became even more annoyed. Why didn't they tell her from the start? Janet, who didn't like Queen's way of speaking, was also annoyed, and an argument ensued between them. Not long after, a loud scream was suddenly heard from the direction of the cornfield. At the same time, one of their friends, Ginger, emerged from the field with an arrow stuck in her back. But everyone thought it was Tucker and Matt, who often played pranks. But the atmosphere suddenly turned tense when Matt's head was thrown towards them. Then the real friendo clown figure appeared from the cornfield carrying an arrow and immediately attacked them all. Here they were cornered because the warehouse door was locked. Luckily, Ross appeared and immediately saved them. As Queen approached to unmask her, another friendo suddenly appeared, and their numbers had now increased. When one of the friendo attacks Queen, luckily Cole arrives just in time and saves her. The two of them escape again and hide in the warehouse. Meanwhile, inside the warehouse where they were hiding, Janet tried to call the police. But there was no signal at all, and Friendo started trying to force his way into the warehouse. Meanwhile, Glenn wakes up and realizes that Queen is no longer in her room. Panicking, Glenn immediately goes outside to look for her.
Driving around looking for...
Back at the warehouse, as the situation becomes increasingly critical, they discover a secret tunnel, and they immediately crawl through. Meanwhile, Raz remains in the warehouse and intends to trap the Friendos using a bomb he made himself. Queen and her friends manage to escape the tunnel. From a distance, they witness the building where Raz was located explode due to the bomb, which killed several Friendo clowns inside the warehouse. There, Cole wanted to go back to save Raz. However, Queen immediately stopped him because they didn't know if another Friendo would attack them again. As a result, they immediately moved away from the cornfield. Elsewhere, while Glenn was still busy looking for Queen, he suddenly noticed that the clinic door had been broken down by someone. Curious, he checked inside, and when he entered, he was suddenly ambushed by the clown figure Friendo. Then he was dragged into the operating room. There was another Friendo clown lying on the bed, seriously injured. The other Friendo spoke to Glenn, and he gave Glenn two very difficult choices. Save his injured friend or his daughter, aka Queen, will die. Here Glenn had no other choice, and was forced to undergo surgery to save the injured clown Friendo. Back to the Queen and her friends. When they arrived at the paved road, they saw a sheriff's car passing by and immediately asked for help. When they looked, it turned out to be the sheriff who didn't like Cole. When he saw Cole holding a gun, without further ado, he immediately arrested Cole, without wanting to listen to their explanation. The women protested that the situation was critical, and they desperately needed the sheriff's help, but the sheriff didn't care and took Cole anyway. This is where Queen starts to feel weird. Why was Cole the only one arrested and taken away, even though they were there with Cole? But Janet and Ronnie were too tired to talk about it, because now they just wanted to survive. The three of them then went towards the old house, or Tillerson's house. But when they were in the cornfield, they met Friendo again. While on the run, Ronnie suddenly tripped. Finally, Friendo brought Ronnie to meet his creator. Long story short, Queen and Janet finally made it to Tillerson's house. Inside, they saw someone wearing a Friendo mask sitting silently in a chair, like a statue. Janet dared to check, and she assumed the man was dead. But suddenly, the sound of a telephone ringing came from upstairs. Unfortunately, they don't know how to use the rather old-fashioned phone. Meanwhile, Queen looks at the wall covered with news reports and photos of the city's teenagers. From here, he realized that all this terrible terror seemed to have been planned from the start. Not long after, they found Frendo's death music box. And this is when they realized that they had been trapped inside the house. Then sure enough, below them, they were shocked, because the figure of Frendo, who had been sitting quietly on the chair, was still alive, and immediately poked Janet's body with a giant meatball fork until she died. Queen fought back by hitting the clown's head with a flower vase. Then, reluctantly, Queen pulled the fork from Janet's body to kill the clown. Meanwhile, at the clinic, Glenn tries to trick the clown. He intentionally kills the injured clown by removing his props. After that, Glenn pretended to panic and asked the other clown for help using a defibrillator. Then, when the clown was unconscious and had his knife on the bed, Glenn quickly took action by stabbing the clown in the neck, killing him. Glenn finds out that his daughter Queen is still alive, and this gang of clowns plans to take Queen to a corn syrup factory called B-Pen. Meanwhile, Queen, who managed to get the car keys, tries to escape. Unfortunately, the car has a manual transmission. Queen can only drive an automatic. Not long after, 4 Friendo clowns appeared and surrounded them, and they managed to kidnap Queen. After waking up, Queen was already in the old B-Pen factory in a tied-up condition. It looks like all the surviving Frendo clowns are gathered there. Then the clowns take off their masks one by one, and it turns out the figure behind the mask is the people in the town of Kettle Spring, like the sheriff, teacher Fan, the owner of the shop that was robbed, the restaurant waitress Trudy, and the craziest thing is, it turns out that Mayor Arthur Hill, Cole's father, also took part in the terrible terror, and he is the leader. Here, Queen also asked, "Why are you doing all these crimes?" The mayor replied, "This city used to be full of order and respect, but now these naughty teenagers have destroyed everything," which made the harvest in the cornfields bad, until finally their predecessors created a tradition of killing naughty teenagers as sacrifices, and they believe that can fix the corn harvest in the area. And now they are targeting Cole's group to be used as sacrifices, because they are considered troublemakers, who can only have fun and make silly pranks that are not important for the progress of the city.
Y'all know what kind. They just didn't want to leave. No.
Then they showed Cole, who was still alive, but tied up and hanging. Arthur never even considered Cole his son, because Cole always caused trouble and brought shame to their family. Cole is also considered to have killed his own sister, because actually, at that time, the one who was able to keep him. After that, Arthur launched Sheriff to immediately shoot Queen, but suddenly came a car resulting in a concrete there collapsed and dreamed the body of the clown Trudy and Clown, who had a shop. And it turned out to be Queen's father. Queen then entered a room and found a lot of Frendo costumes there. When Sheriff Dan was about to enter, Queen quickly put on one of the clown costumes and pretended to be one of them. When the sheriff passed by, Queen immediately took off her mask and then put the electric baton into the sheriff's mouth until he died.
You got that. I'm not.
Panicking, Mayor Arthur tried to escape using Glenn, Queen's father's car, leaving Cole hanging. Luckily, Raz arrived just in time and immediately shot the rope that bound Cole's neck. Finally, the 4 of them left the factory. Outside the building, they found an old car that still seemed to be running. Queen was once again confused because she couldn't drive a car with a clutch, but Glenn calmly taught him slowly, and it worked. Just before they left, the still-alive Mr. Fan reappeared and confronted them with a chainsaw. Then suddenly... Long story short, a year has passed. Now Glenn is running for mayor of Kettle Springs. Meanwhile, Queen is starting college in another city. After saying goodbye to her father, Queen also says goodbye to Cole and Ras. Don't forget, they also gave Queen a security guard baton, so that the world can be protected from other psychopaths out there. On the way, Queen found Frendo's clown music box behind her car seat, and she remembered that Arthur was still alive, but she was fed up with clown-related things. Until finally, Queen, who didn't care anymore, immediately threw the box out because she wanted to focus on her new world, and the film ended. A very clownish ending. This film focuses more on the conflict between the older and younger generations, where the older generation feels they have lost control of the city, Meanwhile, the younger generation wants change and self-expression. This tension ultimately triggers terror and violence. These two generations should be open with each other and given space to listen to each other. If not, this is the result, where differences can turn into disaster. So, what do you think, guys? Did the clown surprise you? The point is, this film shows that differences of opinion between generations can be disastrous if no one listens. Young people want freedom. Old people want control. In the end, they end up as clown satay in a cornfield. Don't forget to like and subscribe.